honored to have Larry Weber address our students today at the Department of Communications' 3rd annual COMDay. Larry is chairman and CEO of Racepoint Global, an integrated marketing communications agency. Larry's experience in the communication industry includes monumental accomplishments over many years. In 1987, Larry started his own public relations company, the Weber Group, which within a decade became the world's largest public relations firm. 9 years later, the Interpublic Group purchased the Weber Group, and in early 2000, Larry was named chairman and CEO of Interpublic's Advanced Marketing Services, a $3 billion unit with 12,000 employees that included the company's public relations, research and analysis, and entertainment holdings. Larry is a globally known expert in public relations and marketing. He helps global brands and emerging companies both utilize social media strategies to enhance their reputations. As a pioneer in the business, Larry founded one of the industry's first interactive marketing agencies, Thunderhouse, and has worked with world-class clients including Bank of America, AT&T, Fidelity, General Electric, IBM, Microsoft, the New York Stock Exchange. The list goes on for a long time. Larry was able to translate his wealth of knowledge into books that benefit the academic and professional communication communities. Larry's authored 5 business and marketing books, the most recent of which is The Digital Marketer, 10 New Skills You Must Learn to Stay Relevant and Customer-Centric. It was released last spring. Today, Larry serves on a number of boards of corporations, nonprofit organizations, and academic institutions. One example, he is co-founder and chairman of the board of directors of the Massachusetts Innovation and Technology Exchange, the largest interactive advocacy organization in the world. It should come as no surprise that Larry is a frequent public speaker on the future of marketing, the social web, and building communities online. In a recent interview Larry gave to Forbes, he was quoted as saying, "For social to be effective, companies must be able to wrap their products and services in well-designed experiences that people can get excited about and share with their friends." We're very excited to hear what Larry has to teach all of us about digital marketing and staying relevant in today's changing media landscape. Thank you, Larry, for accepting our invitation to speak with us today. Please join me in giving a warm Lasell welcome to Larry Weber.
I'm not used to being behind a podium, so I might walk around if that's okay.
Yes.
Can I take this out?
Yes.
I'll probably talk for about maybe a half an hour or so, but I'd really like to take your questions too, so if you can start sort of formulating some of the questions. I go back to the beginning of the software industry, so I can talk to you about that. I was lucky enough to introduce HTML for Tim Berners-Lee, which of course is the web, back in '93, so we can talk about the future of the web. And I wrote my biggest bestseller was 2006 and 7, Marketing to the Social Web, which was, I don't think it was that good of a book, but this is the first book written about what companies should think about social media and what should be done there. In my current book, I would urge you to, I brought a few here, but I would urge you to get it if you're interested in this topic, which you probably are because you're here. I would get it online, get the digital version, because there's over 300 links that takes you to case studies and different examples of what I'm talking about around the different skills, from content creation to visual communications, and things I'll talk about a little today. And obviously, any questions you have on marketing profession, where that's going, how to get the best jobs in marketing, I can talk to you all about that as well. All right? Have a little touch of sports marketing. I know that's something that's close to a lot of young people's hearts right now. So, and you can do that. How many people have Googled more than 10 times today? 5 times? All right, who shopped on Amazon in the past week? Who's been on LinkedIn today? Who's tweeted today? Where do you get your news? Does anybody go to a formal news site? Or do you all go to like Boston.com? Who goes to like a formal news site, like NBC or CNN or something like that? Okay. And how many of you have a smartphone? Who's contemplating an Apple Watch? Yeah, if I do, it's going to be the cheap one to do. The world of marketing is finally going through probably the biggest massive changes that most industries were able to see over the last 20 years because of technology. I was telling the president that one of the reasons marketing has been dragging itself to be integrated with more software and technology is there's still a human element of marketing. So there's still a creative element. There's still a human kind of approach to trying to sell things to people. But the era we're leaving is something you guys are just catching at the tail end, even though it's been around now for almost 75 years. And that's the broadcast era. That is, without a doubt, definitively finally coming to an end in the next few years. So the way you consume media, right, is usually a program. And how many of you really do watch the ads? Does anybody watch ads? So all the old people watch the ad. Has anybody noticed that the television programming is becoming extremely more live event oriented? They're trying to get more sports events, and they're trying to get more live reality shows. And does anybody know why that is? Cheaper. Close. It's harder to block the ads. So Madison Avenue can still get you, the ads because it's harder to. You're watching in the middle of the Patriots game, and you don't want to tape a Patriots game, right? You want to see the entire game as it's real time. So you're going to see in the next few years a continued increase. That's why they're trying to get European soccer games here, right? To try to get the advertising. But it's going to be to no avail eventually. And where is marketing going to go, and what era are we coming into? We're definitely coming into the era of engagement. And how do you engage customers who are more and more in control of what they do? Right? I like telling the story of my oldest daughter. My kids are my research lab. They are 25, 22, and 18. And the millennials are a little different than the 18-year-old boy, by the way, who has left Facebook about 12 months ago, not because he doesn't like it, even though he says grandma's on it. And, but he is just totally enamored with Snapchat. Anybody Snapchat today? How about Vine? Anybody doing Vine, or is that faded? How about Instagram? Hot. Instagram is hot, especially in marketing. And I think it's because it makes your pictures look better than the tape. All right, but back to that engagement era, how are we going to get people to be engaged? And my daughter, after a ridiculously expensive education, of course, was back at home living. And I noticed that we were both around on Mondays. And I said, why don't we watch a TV show together? And she picked The Voice. Okay, we all know that show. I think it's on now again, the kind of thing. So I would just get a glass of wine and my iPhone, and I'd sit down, all right? But not Hannah. What Hannah would do was she'd get her glass of wine, she had her laptop, and she had her iPhone, all right? It's a true story. And she was doing work, all right, on part of her laptop in the day from her job. And the other side of her laptop, she was shopping on a site called Lulu. Right? Lulu. Now, guess what Lulu has? Lulu has a Facebook app that what? You can do. Right? You can share before you buy. You can share that sweater, right, with your friends and say, does this look good on me? But should I buy that? All right? Hannah was looking at 2 dresses. And guess what? She had shopped on Lulu before. They had her phone number. She didn't care. What happened? While she's shopping, she gets text by Lulu. Hey, those 2 dresses you're looking at, we'll give you a 3rd free if you buy them. Then she puts it down, she looks up and she tweets something about Christina Aguilera and the mistake she made, in judging. And she was all perfectly normal with this. By the way, she also said, could I get 2 of the dresses mailed to this house and 1 to my new one in Cambridge that I'm going to go to. And of course, Lulu was able to do all that. So what does a marketer have to do to stay on top of all this? All right? Lesson 1 is real time. Real time is going to become more and more important to marketing and messaging and where we're going. That's 1. 2 is digital environments. Digital environments are going to become an important thing to understand how to create. What do I mean by digital environments? I was saying at lunch with the president, I was on Amazon a few months back for an hour and a half. Now, you're right, Larry, you have no life if you're on Amazon for an hour and a half. Why was I on Amazon for an hour and a half? I got a permission-based email, probably one of the best and most ignored simple marketing techniques. Once you're already a customer of someone, it's okay to send them an email now and then. Just don't be obnoxious. All right? It's really quite okay. And I got an email that said a certain author that I happen to like, an American author, he's passed away now. And they had videos of him, John Updike it was, of reading from his novels. And so I remembered this, and I went on, and I viewed the videos. Then I noticed there were some other videos of authors I liked, and I went to them. By the way, there was one of a famous American writer named William Faulkner. I had a video of him receiving the Nobel Prize, I think it was 1949. And then I went over to the reviews. I don't know anybody ever written reviews or about anything, vacation or plumbing. And I noticed a review of my last book that somebody hated it, and I was really mad, And then I went and wrote a review of Malcolm Gladwell's latest book, What the Dog Saw. I said, how could you write the tipping point for the 4th time? Then I bought about 12 books, and I looked at maybe another 18, 19 books. All in all, what? Hour and a half. What did Amazon get besides money? Anybody? My comments, my social, but more important, data. All right, they knew what I didn't buy, what I looked at, all right? And that was really important because guess what? The next time I went, $5 off the upcoming biography of William Faulkner. All right, what's that called? Reference data software. Other companies are using that now quite a bit. All right, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts even. All right, important. But what had they created? They created a digital environment that I was attracted to, that I stayed in. And you're going to see the metrics of these kinds of things in marketing change from the CPMs of the advertising industry to things like engagement time. How long did you stay? How about the share index? How many people share things with other of your friends? All the time, right? How do we get you to share marketing messages or marketing content? Right? Critical to that. And it's not about all this big data, because we're going to have so much data. Eventually, this room right here will have sensors in it. So it's going to create data on its own about who's here, who's not, what's been said, what hasn't been said. There's going to be data coming everywhere. There'll be sensors on streetlights, on stop signs. All right? It's not about the data. It's about analyzing that data to create better environments and better content. And the content is going to be highly visual. Another tip for you all is to really understand the basics of video. Not that you have to be an expert video, but how to use it in a strategy of content creation. If you still go to YouTube, how many go to YouTube? Almost everybody, all right? YouTube is still disorganized, I find, from a marketing perspective. All right? So in our work, we like to tell a company like IBM, you're going to do 12 two-minute YouTube videos this year about complementary topics. They're going to have the same look and feel, color, etc. So the basics of understanding visual content and visual information are going to be extremely important. So keep that in mind. The next thing to keep in mind is software. All right? You don't have to be a developer, so don't let it scare you. All right? But there is more and more software that's helping us get closer to customers. And we have to understand what that software can do, how it can analyze certain facts, how it can say that this content is more attractive to that content. What is happening in your generation is that marketing is becoming a verb finally. And for my generation, it has been a noun for so long. All right? So what do I mean by that? Is I grew up in a world where you did the annual report, it's done. You did the brochure, it's done. You did the newsletter, it's done. You did the website, it's done. Nothing's done in marketing. It's all evolving, and you have to get better with the analytics that you do. All right? Sometime, you know, a good homework assignment for you all is to just go Google analytic marketing software and see where it takes you. Do stuff like that. Go Google for like an hour on different topics. Visual information, another topic that can go. The use of video in marketing, right? And how you're going to do that and work through that. Search. Where's search going? The next big thing, I think Google won that one, right? Although how many of you all search on YouTube, right? It's the second largest search engine, and Google owns it, which is pretty interesting. But you know, the next big thing I think is going to be social search. What do I mean by social search? We had the pioneers of social search right in this area, and they're building a big new headquarters on 128. TripAdvisor. Does anybody use TripAdvisor, or at least go on it? Probably not. You're younger, some of them? All right. But what TripAdvisor did was, people are saying, hey, wait, don't believe that hotel. I stayed there. It's a lousy hotel. All right? And so, you know, the review-based or social search is, I think, the next big, I think you're going to see Facebook get into social search in a big way. And they're going to get bigger into native advertising. Who knows what native advertising is? How are you guys? They're hiding, there's a paid advertisement in a story or in a content. So you might be watching something you think is just a story, but it's being paid for by Budweiser. And somehow Budweiser gets in there. It's sort of akin to, you know, how many have been to a movie lately? You know how all of a sudden there's a Coke bottle on the table? Coke pays for that. All right? So this rise in this native advertising, when Howie and I were younger, we called it advertorials. We were up front about it. All right? But now they try to hide it. So be careful around the native, you know, advertising kind of thing. And social. All right? How important is social? I think it's getting more important. But it's going to get more organized, and it's going to get more micro-segmented. What do I mean by that? All right, Facebook, to me, is just the mass media of this last generation. When my mother, God rest her soul, would wake up in the morning, she'd put on CBS and leave it on all the way to the evening news. Watch every program. Well, Facebook tried to do the same thing, to get you basically to use Facebook as the platform that you stay on and, you know, use with whatever you do. I think it's gotten too big. I have over 800 friends. I don't even know half of them. So maybe I misused that somehow. I think LinkedIn is very powerful. I think it's getting its act together. I didn't like it at first. Many years ago, 2004 and 5, when it started, because every person was asking for a job. Now it's gotten into more of a conversational style. Twitter is not visual enough. I think it's going to try, but Twitter is a broadcast still. It's a broadcast platform. It is not, to me, an engaging platform as much. I like it, and I bet marketers should use it as an amplifier, an amplification kind of story. Now, how do you put all these things together to try to have greater impact in marketing? I'm going to use a student story example. In our house, I was in charge of doing the research for the schools that the kids were going to apply to, or the colleges. How many of you did your own research? All right. By the way, I was Mr. Digital, and every school we went to visit, I took a giant LL Bean canvas bag, and I'm collecting all the brochures and the newsletters and all this stuff. And I even put an extra leaf in the dining room table at home, and I laid them all out. Lasell College, community college, all these. And my kids didn't look at one hard piece. All right, but I'll get back to that part of this. I was convinced after looking at 30 websites of universities and colleges that there's only one agency that does all of the creative work for university and college websites. Because why? Because every landing page had the same photo. There was a African American co-ed, there was a white American and an Asian American, and they were all smiling and carrying backpacks across a beautiful fall landscape. Seriously, go look. All right? And then also, the architecture of the site was all the same. About us, visit us, right? So I was getting a little tired of this, and I was at the end. My kids didn't go there, but there was a little school in Connecticut called Trinity College, and it had the exact same landing page. But what happened when I did About Us? Guess what happened? All of a sudden, this young woman with a Trinity sweatshirt on, a hoodie, in a video, carrying our backpack, comes right in the middle of my computer and looks right out at me and drops her backpack and says, "Hi, my name's Anita, and I want to take you on a virtual tour of Trinity College and show you how it changed my life." And I went, "Go, girl." This was just so cool, all right? Because I'm like, all of a sudden, what happened? I'm emotionally connected and involved here. All right? So they had the visualness, they had the information, they had some realness, and they had a digital environment that attracted me. So they had put that all together. All right? Whereas the world is really going to be separated into 3 types of media. You all need to be clear. This is the kind of nomenclature that's happening in our market space. There are 3 types of media moving forward. There's earned media, paid media, and owned media. Right? Those are the 3 circles of media that are available. What is paid media? That's pretty obvious, right? You buy, native advertising is a type of paid media, commercials, banners, even digital coupon, digital loyalty are types of paid media. Right? What is owned media? That's the stuff a company or a school creates itself and then distributes. So it's whatever the Lasell marketing department, is creating and distributes. That's owned media, or what's on a corporate website. That's owned media. And you just don't leave it there, by the way. You share that. And you have distribution strategies to get that around. And to me, the most important is earned media. And earned media is just a fancy name for PR. That's how you work to get third parties to write about you and to talk about you, whether that be a Wall Street Journal, a New York Times, or a blogger. All right, and by the way, blogging I think is going to get more important than less important. It's going to be highly video in its nature. All right, where we're headed there. So visualization, data and analytics, and also network effects. I can't use this metaphor anymore, my middle daughter told me, because I used to say that all big websites are going to go the way of the Soviet Union and collapse under its own weight. But she said it seems to be coming back, the Soviet Union, so you can't use that anymore. And what I'm trying to say is you can't have big websites anymore. They're too big, they don't search properly, and that is a waste of marketing time and space. I went on some of the fanciest websites of companies and of universities a few months back, and I would ask a simple question in the search box. Does Lasell have a search box on its website? I don't want to open a can of worms here, but I would go on some very reputable sites and say, Board of Trustees. The closest I got in about 20 tries was a news release of somebody being appointed to the Board of Trustees 3 years before. So we've got to make sure that individual engagement pieces of site destinations are clear, are accurate, and that they work well. Or you're going to lose the connection and the engagement, right, of the audience you're trying to make. Two other disciplines I think are going to be huge as you get older, that no matter what part of marketing you're in, you always have to do constituency mapping. All right, so talk to your faculty about constituency mapping and how you do a correct constituency map. The complexity of a healthcare institution. We have a client, Kaiser Permanente. It's one of the largest payors in the country. They have at least 24 constituencies. When you add up nurses, caregivers, doctors, specialty doctors, family. And each one of those constituencies then has a media map that attaches to them. What kind of media is affecting them? And what are they using? Right? So that build and start from a constituency map on each company and what it's doing. One of the last things I'll talk about is the resurgence of thought leadership, where companies now don't talk about just products. They talk about, one of this was really, I think it was a tagline, but it was a thought leadership program, Smarter Planet by IBM. So they try to raise the bar of the conversation by presenting a thought leadership idea, platform, or program. And I think you're only going to see that come back more and more. All right? I think if I were a young person, I'd also explore the future of digital loyalty and digital coupon. I think it's going to be huge, whoever figures that out. And it's going to be part software, obviously. But I should be able to go into a Brooks Brothers store if that's the kind of shirt I like. And I should not have to have organized my points at Brooks Brothers. I'm in control here, Brooks Brothers. I bought things. You make it easy for me just to show my phone and give me a free shirt if I have enough points. All right? So the whole idea of digital loyalty, digital couponing, digital location. One story my one daughter thought was creepy, but I thought was okay, was I was on a panel, I told this at lunch too. I was on a panel with the Starbucks CEO, and he asked me if I'd be a sort of tester or guinea pig of one of their marketing programs. I said, sure. I didn't hear from them. A few weeks later, I got sort of a Survey Monkey. How many of you have taken a Survey Monkey? Everybody now, right? Okay. And it was, what's your favorite drink at Starbucks? What time of the day do you go? Do you have a sandwich? What kind of sandwich do you have? Can we have your phone number? Sure. I'm in London a few weeks later, and we decided, my daughter and I, to breakfast somewhere else, but I get a text from Starbucks. It says, good morning, Larry. Would you like to come across the street to 323 High Kensington Street? We'll give you your free espresso, iced espresso, and a sandwich. Get a discount on your sandwich. I went, cool. My daughter thought it was creepy because she said they could drop a drone on you. But I thought it was pretty cool. So I go in and I held up my phone, and sure enough, I got the free drink and I got the discount on the sandwich. and their analytics and data machine was turning, right? And it was moving. And guess what? They brought in the next big thing in marketing, which is going to be two things, contextual marketing and predictive marketing. They're going to be able to predict the next time Larry's going to be wanting that iced espresso and know when to make offers at the right time within the right context. In addition to the context, what am I'm saying, is what if they offered me a free herbal tea? And I hate herbal tea. Wouldn't that put our relationship back a little? You know? They don't know me. Why are you sending me this stuff? How do we get things narrower, easier, faster, better? I saw Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, on a panel a few months ago, and the interviewer said, how does it feel to be one of the greatest retailers of all time? And he looked literally mad, like he was going to jump up and clock this guy. And he said, I am not a retailer. So the interviewer said, well, what are you, Mr. Bezos? He said, I'm the biggest sucker of data on the planet. And what he does with that data, he owns 70% of the cloud, not him, Amazon does. And how they analyze that to get closer to you, I think is just fine. And I think it's going to be a lesson in good marketing to understand that you're entering a world that you're going to have a new toolbox. A toolbox filled with really cool stuff. How many apps are on your phone? Take a wild guess. 60? How about you? Apps on your phone? 100? 30? Anybody have over 100?
My grandson has 400, and he's 8. True.
All right. So one of the fastest races right now is to get quickly to business apps and ones that help you analyze information quickly and more effectively. So you're actually going to have a leg up on us older marketing people with all the experience you have with those apps as these software companies come out with quick analytic apps to help. So I could go on and on. I'm amazed that finally software and marketing are integrating to create more powerful experiences digitally. I'm a big believer in everything digital and live. I think why you have sports marketing on the rise, besides it being fun, is there's this sort of connection between events and digital excitement. So that you start to, fantasy football, why it's become so big. So in our world, it's called experiential marketing, event marketing. Right? And then the use of digital kinds of things where you don't even call it mobile anymore. It's just that experience. I think most traditional ad agencies will go away in the next 10 years. I think what you're going to have is hybrids of agencies that are part of what I would call systems integrators, if you all know what that is, that look out and see what's in the toolbox to bring to a problem, to solve, and you're going to see strategy come back. So the names you might have heard of, like McKinsey, Deloitte, these kinds of companies, Bain Consulting, and they're going to combine with this kind of digital execution, try to build these kinds of programs in depth. The better your content now, though, the bait is the content. The bait, when I was growing up, were ads. That's no longer. Now you want to share the content, right? And even me, here, I try to be serious sometimes, but then when I get a birthday thing of the Minions, how many Minions does it take to screw in a light bulb? I just loved it. It was the funniest. I don't know if anybody has seen that one. And here's this master's degree in 20th century British and American literature watches the Minions screwing in a light bulb at least 10 times. And I'm sending it to all my friends. Of course, it was brought to me by Red Bull. So, that kind of thing. I hope this hasn't been boring to you all. I go deeply into the digital marketer. I can't recommend it more. It's one of the few books out there that is a landscape, and I think it's 90% accurate. I've been doing this for 35 years, so believe me. And the only book I would compare it to is 50 years ago, Ogilvy on Advertising, that gave us a whole landscape of the broadcaster. Because what exists right now on Amazon is just the book on search, just the book on analytics, just the book, all right, on content strategy and creative. So I would encourage you to understand the context and the landscape before you dive in. I'd love to take questions on anything, from getting jobs to software, to marketing, to advertising, to PR. No such thing as press releases anymore. If you're being taught how to write a press release, tell them Mr. Weber said don't take that course. Microphone back here.
Just about, I just want to ask you, you said your daughter found the Starbucks communication would be creepy.
Yep.
It struck me that some of the analytics that you were talking about, the usages of data, could be seen as prescriptions for digital redlining.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think they can be too. I'm a big believer though in transparency, and if you approach your analytic base transparently, that ultimately it won't be used that way. Especially in a network effect of people that catch companies doing that, I think you're going to see a backlash against that kind of company that's using the information in that wrong way. I think where the line's going to come is actually more and more personal data. I think once health data is easily shareable, that's when I think a lot of people are going to draw the line because they don't want that certain parts of data. But knowing that I like a iced espresso or a blue shirt from Brooks Brothers or yellow socks, this is not really that private data for me. All you have to do is look at me, and see what I'm doing. So I don't think that much. But we're going to go into a lot of areas where people are going to try to trick you. But if I did write a 6-book on marketing, the notes I'm taking right now is on this idea that marketing is dead. Long-lived marketing, where the greatest brands in the world are going to become transparent, and that's going to be the strength of their brand because they're open, direct, honest with their consumers and having real engagement and offering them deals and having some morality based in their marketing. I might be sounding a little Pollyannish there, but I think we had to go through the desert a little to get to this point. We still have to have good products.
Larry, could you do the microphone?
Mind you, kids have to ask questions too, not just the teachers.
Well, you're such a valuable resource. I hope that some of the students will, be able to ask questions also. But I'm curious. BU is launching, Boston University is launching a PhD in digital media this fall. I had a conversation with the dean, and I said, that's a form of communication. I mean, how do you do a degree in digital media? So, looking at your expertise and your background, if you were going to be advising a department of communication what they should be doing with their master's degrees, for example, what would you say? All the communication faculty are here, and we'd be very curious to know what do you think we should focus on in our bachelor's degrees and in our master's degrees to make our students, most competitive in this whole market? We'd really appreciate some of your advice in that area. Thank you.
My guess is that if you have a PhD program in digital media, the definition of digital media would have to be rather broad. Understanding how it's impacting the legal profession, understanding how it's impacting sports, understanding how it's impacting healthcare. I think that level of depth of the influence of digital media on specific categories you could probably muster enough knowledge and interest to create some kind of doctorate program. Now to the other part of the question, I would look at the most impact that different digital media has. I would look at things from an impact and engagement point of view. If I was teaching undergraduate and master's programs, and try to at least, like doing the good old American thing of making the top 10 lists, right? You know, I can be cynical about that. But, you know, what are the 10 most at any given time important bloggers in a category? And why are they so impactful? You know, why is it that the best newspaper journalists in this country have created their own brands? So it's not just John Markoff of the New York Times, it's John Markoff, the technology brand. All right, so studying the actual move more toward individual digital media brand, I think is going to be an important, you know, lesson to learn and around impact. I think what defines a digital company in these days, or a digital media company, is going to be important. Is LinkedIn a digital media company? Or is it a job search company? Or is it a advanced resume company? Or is it some kind of converged digital media company? Probably. And how do we look at that? But it also goes back to, I would even study, especially at the master's level, I would study this rise in gated communities of digital media, and that's happening more and more in business to business. And that's where you have to validate who you are, and you get a password to join the analytics software group at IBM. And IBM promises not to sell you anything, but they can listen to your conversations you're having with your peers about different topics, different content that's created. So I would go deep into that kind of, you know, digital media. I would look at the impact of visual media, not just songs on YouTube, but actual impact of changing behavior. I mean, ultimately, what marketing is to change, you know, the opinion through content. That's really what it is, whether you buy something or vote for something or do something. So I would talk about behavioral change. I bring psychology. I probably have something that, I've heard you have a very good psychology department. You might want to have a course that crosses over. I would look at some crossover work, digital media and psychology, because it's hard in the future. I don't see how these will all stay independent of one another, each subject category. Because in the world, we're seeing, in the work world, we're seeing a lot of crossover of influence that's happening across categories. So I would do that. And then I would study the best content creators. I would look at the best case studies. I think Amazon's company should be studied for its digital footprint. Study the kind of software it's using. I think Google's algorithms should be studied and look at how it's advancing its metrics and also its behavior analytics for free. Remember, you know, Google's free, so for teachers to use that in a deeper way to understand how digital media is having impact on our lives, I think is something that should be done too. And then I would try to find books that raise above the real specific, like I was just saying, the very tactical sort of search engine optimization or, you know, content strategy. These are all important, but can we give young people a context of what's really happening, how it's shaping in the world, and why it's an engagement economy, and why it's the era of a platform, why all the successful companies right now are creating their own platforms. All right? I mean, who's not to say, you know, that John Deere, the tractor company, is not a digital media company now, as they're printing data around better management of farms, and when to plant seeds, and how to irrigate that, and how to have a better yield, and when to sell your crops, and how to do urban farming. You know, well, that could be a digital media company. Or General Motors saying we're going to hire more software developers to help us make a smarter software car, like Tesla. So is that some form of a digital media company? So I think starting from those kinds of questions, I would think. And I also would, again, teach that a lot of human behavior doesn't change that much, generation to generation, but the immediacy and the engagement of what we're around and how fast things move is something that needs to see. What then is the effect that happens? How do we sell more stuff if that's our job, you know, to do? Those are a few things. We have two here. First you and then you.
You talked a lot about psychology just in this topic, and staying there. How important is international marketing? And I know you said crossover, and we're a very diverse country, and does that play an important part of how you do your business and how you see the digital media marketing increase? And should we pay attention more to what's going on outside the country and try to learn from them, and at the same time teach outside those markets?
I think that, I think it's a platform, organization-wise. I think what's happening outside the country and things like the Arab Spring originally, that was a mobile platform to try to create the effect of change, all right, or a political platform. And they used Twitter quite a bit. So they were using a different digital tool for that platform outcome than maybe the social platform, which are right now Facebook, LinkedIn, a bit Twitter. So, and those are fast growing in all countries right now. You have sports social networks that are growing in all countries right now. The cool thing about the Chinese is that they didn't go about social media and their digital media in isolated formats. So what they did was combine, Tencent is a combination, and Weibo are combinations. If you put Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn all together in one stop, and then you have Alibaba that added Amazon to that connection. So now you're shopping, social, everything. So you have to look at the way the societies also grow up, and that part of it's not even psychology, it's more, on this one, sociology, right, or even anthropology, would be to know that in China, people often have, professionals often have 3 phones. One they just use for personal, one they use for professional, and one they use for commerce. So you have to look at those kinds of things. What I'm really intrigued with internationally is in the next few years when a smartphone is free. And you already have places where it's close to being free. And how does that change society? How does that change the way we buy and sell things? How does that change the way we do marketing programs? When it's paid for more through content, through native advertising, through underwritten kinds of things. Because mark my words, smartphones will be free. And what Apple's trying to do right now is become a fashion company. Before, smartphones were free. So we'll see, just like your mother might buy a Gucci bag and save up money, even though she doesn't need a Gucci bag, really, to carry all her things, but she wants that Gucci bag. That's what Apple's counting on, is that kind of brand psychology. We'll see if they get away with it. Especially when Huawei comes in here with a better phone for $25.
What you said before about news web pages getting more complex, like Lasell's, and I'm doing a marketing internship, and they were doing asking us questions about what they thought of our newsletter, and they were asking if it was too boring or too complex and confusing, and I do agree because there was just a bunch of text and those small articles, and nothing really popped up or made anything made me want to read more. So from your experience, what do you think is best when it comes to get somebody's attention, make them really want to look at their promotion or pay attention to it?
First of all, simpler is better. Always simpler is better. I mean, look at Google's landing page. Could you get simpler? All right, and then you can go through it to get more complex. But so simple is better. And then content is extremely important. I would suggest you bring up newsletters. Go look at a thing the Dartmouth College students are doing up there in New Hampshire called 40 Towns, and how they're doing. They have to write a story of deep interest from a community, but it only can be in 4 paragraphs. But it So again, brief, compelling content. And then as far as offers go, offers have to come after. I think if you try to do offers, a marketing thing where it's in your face, I think that's wrong. I think you have to engage people and then give them an offer, instead of giving them an offer and try to engage them. You know, except for, goofy stuff like, free Ben and Jerry's ice cream cone or something like that. I mean, that's fine, and that's still marketing. I'm talking about sustained marketing that builds brands over time. Okay? And isn't a lot of giveaway kind of thing. All right, this faculty member, then this student.
So I know you mentioned, you talked about social media and Twitter. You mentioned it wanting to be more visual, and being a person being a visual person and enjoying actually creating visuals and stand for marketing and advertising. Do you believe in 5 to 10 years everything will become visual with all this social media networks such as Instagram?
Yeah, it's not going to just be this immediate hit, sort of thing, but you're going to see very soon there's a company called Reel, R-E-L, that's been in sort of stealth mode down in Cambridge and Boston, and they're going to be a visual Twitter for groups. So the idea is you would go to a concert and you would all have different angles and you'd be creating a real-time comments, but based on the visual. I really like that song, I don't. I'm over here by the stage, I'm over behind the stage, that kind of stuff. So you're going to see these kinds of innovations. They've got to be really easy to use, or you guys are just going to put them down, right? Unless they're easy to tap, on things. We used to use the word click in my generation. You guys say tap, I guess now. But and then Twitter has a chance to save itself, but I still call it sort of the AP or the wire service of a new generation. I think it's sort of what it is, and I think the reason that so many stars and athletes like it is because it's like they can just blab, about stuff. And it's, but how we use it in business is I use the word amplifier. So you've already done all the stuff I've talked about, then you tweet about it to amplify it. So to turn up the volume of that great content, that great video that was just shown on the site, of that great offer that, Starbucks has or whatever.
And to go off of that, international business being such a big thing now, and you're creating your own business, you want it to be eventually go global as the business office and everything. Do you think having these kind of social media sites, such as Twitter and Facebook, will help that market and small businesses become more global?
Yeah, I do. It depends on what I'm going to be interested to see, I was just talking about the Chinese social platforms and Alibaba, as they try to come over to North America. I'm going to see how the young people react to having that competition in this marketplace. If you guys start using Facebook or not, if you start doing some other things, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the history, at least of technology innovation and the 7 waves of technology, there's very few brands that have sustainable, but if you have to remember, Google is only 17 years old. Facebook was 2004, so that's 11 years old. Twitter was 2005, I think, so that's 10 years old. Instagram's 5 years old, 6 years old. Snapchat, 5, 6, 7, something like that. So these are very new kinds of brands that all could fade. I remember a famous CEO that was a friend when I worked a lot for General Motors, and he used to carry, your faculty will like this, he used to carry 2 index cards in his pocket. He was the head of this giant car company. And I said, what do you keep looking at those index cards in your pocket? And the first one was the 10 largest companies in America from 1900 to 1925. Then he had the 10 largest companies from 1925 to 1950. Then he had the 10 largest companies 1950 to 75, and the 10 largest companies 1975 to 2000. And there was only 2 companies that stayed on that entire 100 years, and that was General Motors and General Electric. And they'll probably fall off in the next 25. So, interesting to think about. Okay. One more question, or 2 more?
I've just, in my own personal experience, and I'm sure my classmates have also experienced this, in my internships, they've pretty much just given me only social media work. It's been a lot of like, well, you're a millennial, go tweet. So I'm just curious how you would suggest, I'm a senior, I'll be graduating in May, how do you suggest I expand that experience into more digital marketing side as opposed to just social?
I have a good answer for you. Congratulations on graduating. What most companies do when they hire interns and have you do social media is nothing strategic about it. It's a very tactical exercise, and I think one of the biggest opportunities missed is being a strategic look at social media. How and should you even be using Facebook? And if you should, how should you be using it, and why should you be using it? And what happens to a lot of companies is they get into what I call reactive mode. It doesn't have to be social media, it's the same behavior. Oh, we have all these people, who are posting things, we gotta respond. Well, maybe you don't have to respond. He did a lot of work for an African leader, President Kagame of Rwanda, and he called me like he was just so upset that there was this blogger in Sweden that was calling him a dictator. And we had to do something about her blog. And I said, all right, let's look. And she had 7 people that routinely went and listened to their blog. So there was no strategic reason to even answer the person. All right, so I think just having some strategy, I think would be a last question, and then your president has to get back to work.
All right, last year, Mark Zuckerberg said he wanted everyone to be on the internet.
Internet.org. I talked to Cheryl about it. What do I think about it? I just had dinner last night with our senator, Ed Markey, who is, he actually leads a lot of net neutrality and sort of thing. I am such a big believer, and I'm not all Democrat, believe me, especially after I started my own businesses. A lot of Republicans came into my blood. But I am such a believer that it is every human right to have free access to the internet. It is so important. And whether it's through Mark Zuckerberg, who has actually, I think he has a little other idea, other than why he wants people to have free access to the internet. But I think not having access to networks in this day and age keeps people down. And so I think the importance of access to networks for free. Now, do I mind if somebody, a carrier, says we're going to give you extra fast and this and that, and for that you have to pay a little bit? Okay. But I want that farmer in South Africa to have free access to the internet. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you.
Larry, I want to thank you for your thought leadership. You've definitely earned your media exposure here today. But I think in the interest of transparency, we should tell you with the watching and paying attention and collecting data on you. We own you now. Which means you have to come back and see us often. Help me express our appreciation and thanks once again.